Well, it's good that you're sitting on our show then. Good timing.
What do you think I'm here for?
Every year there's another story. P-diddy this and P-diddy that.
Yeah.
What's your take on this dark side?
There's a lot here, what you just said.
We're brought up in Queens to Trinidadian parents.
So when they came to America, it was culture shock to see how racist it was. You love everything about me, but you really don't fuck with me.
What have you learned from fame?
Fame doesn't even think it needs talent anymore. I've also seen fame put people in handcuffs, figuratively and literally. You know what I'm saying?
Okay guys, so it's nice to be sitting with Steve. I tried to squeeze this guy's brain as much as I can and learn. He has a beautiful story. I think you're going to enjoy it. Anybody who hasn't followed us, subscribed, always support us to give you more. And anybody who's getting to know from all of our family and audience, who's getting to know Steve, I really hope they enjoy you, your mind, and find him on social media, support him, and bring him to he's going to open his business in this region, so.
All right, my man. All
We
right.
good. Ready? All right. So today's a mixed breed. Like I said, we'll talk a bit about you and a bit about your work, which I usually do.
Whatever you want to do, man.
So first is a signature way to start. I always do it this way. Hi, Steve. How are you really doing?
That's a serious question.
Absolutely.
How am I really doing?
Yep.
You know, I always think about that when people ask you, hey man, how you doing, as a nicety. They don't really want to know how you're doing. They don't really give a fuck about how you're doing. They just say that to be polite. So how am I really doing? I feel really good. The last year was a very tough, challenging year for me, my family. A lot of health scares that we had to pay attention to, warnings that we had to pay attention to. And it was the first time that health really took a priority in my life. I've been going and going and going and going. And that's only not mine, but my wife's as well. And we had to just like slow down and really focus on our health. It wasn't a scary thing, but it was a concerning thing because as you evolve in life, you know, the term health as well, whoever's coined that was pretty brilliant. It's true. But we're past that. I'm very excited about, you know, having ideas as an entrepreneur, new ideas. When something inspires you, you have a new idea. Very similar to an artist. You'll hear artists a lot say like, oh, I want to go here. You know, I need inspiration. I need to see this. I need to be around that. And as an entrepreneur, it's very similar, where you need to be around something. You need to see something. You need to find the next thing that creates curiosity and a problem you want to solve. And I can tell how I'm doing partially by how inspired I am about solving problems. And there's a gigantic problem that I found that I'm going to solve. I'm excited about that. So all in all, I'm doing well. I'm doing very well.
What's the giant problem?
I am now early in it. I'm early in it, so I don't want to reveal what it is yet. But just know that for me, I'm the kind of guy that measures 3-4 times and cuts once. So when I come up with an idea, I really understand the idea thoroughly. So an example of that is like when I started United Masters 7 years ago, the real problem in the record business didn't hit yet. The recorded music business did not think they had a problem at the time. I seen a clear disaster coming. And 7 years later, everything I thought was going to happen happened. Now, the issue you have as a visionary is that if you're a really thorough visionary, you see it early. The earlier you see it, the longer it takes to happen. So you applaud yourself for seeing it early, but now you have to wait so long for you to find it, for it to realize itself, which means you have to have runway, financial runway. You have to keep all your employees and partners inspired until it happens, because the journey is much longer than, one would expect. But that's how early you've seen it. So today, the record companies, United Masses has cracked the code on independent music. The legacy recording record companies are suffering. They're laying off people by the boatloads. They're reorganizing. Universal's reorganizing it. Sony's reorganizing it. Warner Brothers is reorganizing. They're reorganizing because their business model is failing. And the independent model is thriving. We built United Masses under one idea, that we were going to allow the artists to keep a lion's share of the revenue by providing services for them that were going to allow them to be successful. So no longer was being an independent this thing where, you couldn't get a major deal, so you ended up over here. No, you ended up over here because you wanted to actually get really rich. That was a decision you made. You wanted to own your masters. You wanted to be a person in charge of your future, not handing over your name and likeness to a record company under the legacy models and allowing them to, you would get famous and they'd get rich. Yeah.
I was talking, this might be interesting for you. I was talking to an extremely talented independent artist. He's from Saudi. And he was complaining, because I told him, man, I've been seeing a lot of people use your music on TikTok on really emotional videos, right? He's like, yeah, but I'm not happy with that. I'm like, why? It's good PR. Like you're
promotion the song.
But he's like, I don't make $1 out of that, Anas. He's like, I don't belong to any record label. So when they're using these songs because they recorded it off something, nothing comes to me. He said, in the West, some people live off their 3 hit songs all of their life because they're making some royalties.
Yeah.
But here,
there needs to be, so part of why I'm so interested and been spending so much time in the GCC is because I do believe that there could be an additional layer and structure around the recorded music business that currently exists here. So that artist's complaint, I understand where he's coming from. There needs to be improvements to the ecosystem around copyright laws, payments for usage and sync. And I do believe that as we bring United Masses to the market, we'll bring some of the innovations of that to the market. Not necessarily innovation, but
know-how.
Well, not only know-how, but systems and protocol. Systems and protocol. But look, we have artists all over the world. I mean, we have artists out of Chile, where there's laws that need to be evolved in order to protect the artists. Obviously, we are in Nigeria, where there needs to be laws in place to protect the artists. But as independent music is growing, a lot of these emerging markets for music specifically, so like Chile or Brazil, Africa, India, exploding. These markets are actually growing faster than any other markets than anywhere around the world. As a result of it, like anything else, because of this growth, all of a sudden comes attention. When there's attention, comes money. When there's money, there comes protocol, laws, enforcement, collections. So it's now happening. We're in the early innings of it. We're in the early beginning of it, but it's now happening, where you're going to start to see a seismic growth, and as a result of that seismic growth, a new set of laws and ideas to protect the artists.
And this is where Steven is forecasting something that he has to work on because it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, that idea is already the idea that I'm solving. So that's not the new idea, right? That idea, this idea I've been working on for 7 years now. We built an incredible team of people who were fearless because they stayed with me the entire time. And when I look at them, they inspire me. They believed in me. They didn't see it. They trusted me. And then glimpses of it started to happen. Just a little bit. And even when a little bit happened, you would think, okay, there it is. But then it fleets, and then it comes back. Like any entrepreneur knows that, right? You think you got it, then you don't got it, then you got to do it again. And the people who stayed with me, I have a great deal of respect for. They inspire me. And, you know, as an entrepreneur, there's a certain excitement when you solve a problem in solving the problem. Like, I knew it, I knew it, I knew it, I knew it. That feels good, but now you got to turn it into money because you got to pay a return to your investors. You got to, you know, you got to get compensated fairly for the time that you put into it, right? So there's a great satisfaction in knowing that you've seen it before it happened, but then you have to commercialize the idea and make sure that there's, you know, money and success attached to it for you and all the people who believed in it early on. And that's the stage we're in right now. So we already proved the idea. Now we got to take it as far as we can. The advertising business, translation, has been something I started 20 years ago. A lot of people know about us just from the idea that we were going to bring culture into marketing and advertising. So there's famous ads that we did with Allen Iverson and Rap and Jadakiss and Reebok. And I'm loving it for McDonald's and getting Pusha T and Pharrell involved at launching. I'm loving it for McDonald's and the Jay-Z sneaker and the G-Unit sneaker and all that work that we've done. And then Beats by Dre, some of the work that we've done that's iconic. Probably the best best piece of content I've ever made was for Beats, a campaign called You Love Me. It was amazing. You love my culture, but you don't love me. And it was a very deep insight on how African Americans in America feel that they're famous and they're all of this, but yet they're still not loved. You love everything about me, but you really don't fuck with me. Very powerful campaign. So I'm really proud about the work that we've done as an agency, what we stand for, 20 years independent, celebrating our 20th anniversary. So it's good, and we're bringing the agency over here to the GCC. Proud to do work with Qatar Tourism. We're setting up offices in Dubai to start, and looking for very talented people to work with us and continue the legacy of the company.
Well, it's good that you're sitting on our show then. Good timing.
Yeah, well, that's what you think I'm here for. You think it's a coincidence?
No, I don't. Actually, I'm more on the edge of nothing in life is a coincidence. I really believe that things are by design. Even outside when we're sitting, you're talking about 3 days ago, you asked about our agency, and then you get a message from us in 3 days.
It's very weird.
The probability of that is extremely low if it was just coincidence.
Unless the phones are listening.
Unless the phones are listening. Okay, so I'm going to tap into you and into your business. So back onto you. Who are you, Steve, when no one's around you?
Thinking about what's next. Let me pull back a second. When I'm with my family or when I'm by myself?
Solo.
Thinking about what's next. I entertain myself with thought. I entertain myself with. It's really hilarious to me how much I enjoy being by myself, just thinking about the things that I think about. It's almost like I have this interview with myself All the time. I mean, I ask myself questions and I want to know, how would you approach this? Or how do you think about that? And what do you think about, what trends do you see? And I force myself to, like, exercising of the brain. I love that. I do that all the time. I do it all the time. I don't love long flights because of that. Like any amount of time where I don't have to deal with anything else but sticking with my thoughts and forcing myself to think through things differently, different approaches. Once a year, I go on these hikes for 70 miles. You do it in a week. It's brutal.
I do the same.
It's a brutal situation. I hate it in the beginning of the week, and I love it at the end. And I put myself through this torture once a year. And I do it without headphones so that I allow all of the natural thoughts to just happen involuntarily. And a lot of it is, things with my family that I'd like to do better, things about myself that I'd like to improve, goal setting. But it's really when I have the most amount of times with myself in a row. It's 6 days in succession. And I enjoy that time. It's made me a better human being when I put that time in.
And I read, Steve, that you were brought up in Queens to Trinidadian parents, right?
Yeah.
What did you learn from each that really served you in your career? Mom and dad.
Yeah. So, I was born in Queens, New York. Queens get the money. There's a lot of great people who came from Queens. Nas, 50, Russell Simmons, Run DMC, Tribe Called Quest. The list goes on and on. Salt and Pepper. It's very proud of the artists and great artists that's come from Queens.
You know what's crazy? You're saying these names, and maybe you're partly assuming I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and it's crazy that a kid from Dubai literally knows every name that you just said.
I could give you more names. How about all those names are from a 5-mile radius?
Wow.
I grew up, but I'm going to get to that in a second, but I grew up literally right. So there's the Bronx and the movement around the Bronx and the invention of hip hop and that sound. But then when Queens got involved, it literally happened Russell Simmons lived 3 miles from my house. So I would go around and see LL Cool J performing at block parties regularly at the mall. Like literally at the mall. Imagine going to Dubai Mall and seeing LL Cool J rap. But he wasn't LL Cool J at the time, but just rapping, battling guys in the mall, like that, blah, 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 whatever. Like I grew up in that. At the park, the beginning of it, the essence of it, it is me. And I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that, man. So my dad was a merchant marine. They're both alive. So when you say they were, people think like, was your parents still alive? No, they're alive.
God bless them.
And my dad was a very, not structured like that, but principle-based. Everything was principle-based. The principles behind what you do, the foundational truth on why you do something. He was a merchant marine, so he'd go away for like 3 months and then come back home. He started delivering cargo to Vietnam early. What they did in America was they literally got Africa, when black people in America was like, I'm not fighting the Vietnam War. This is the late 60s. They wouldn't fight the Vietnam War. Martin Luther King, there was racism in America. Like, why would we go fight for you?
Even Muhammad Ali.
Treating us like shit here. But what they did was they went to all of the English-speaking Caribbean countries and waved green cards in front of them. And they all, obviously, this is a chance to be in America. Then they came to America and found out how racist it was. They didn't know. I mean, the news the racism didn't blatantly make it back to them. So when they came to America, I don't care if you were from Jamaica, Barbados, whatever, it was culture shock to see how racist it was. You were happy to be in America, but then the reality of your skin color kicked in. My dad was one of those recipients of that green card and went delivering cargo to Vietnam and then continuing to be a merchant marine. So I would see him on and off. He'd come back and, you know, we had a lower middle class. We had a house. We can go to private school, Catholic school. But outside of that, things were kind of thin. So I started working early to buy my own clothes and all that, because they didn't have the money for that. It was like education, roof over your head, safe. You know, the rest of it was, you know, whatever. My mom was enterprising. My mom was all about entrepreneurship. My mom was all about hustle, go get it done, and make money. They both were about hard work. My mom was like, make money. My dad was like, go to work, feed your family, get a roof over your head, pay for their education. My mom was like, no. That plus make some fucking money. And it was that about my mom that got me really inspired to do things like take risks. So when I dropped out of college, I was going into the real estate business. There was an opportunity, and my mom mortgaged our home, unbeknownst to my dad, and lent me $30,000. I was 18 years old, 18 going on 19. And I gave my mom $45,000 back 30 days later. And I was scared to death if I fucked this up, if I miscalculated it. My mom took out a $30,000 loan and the only asset that they had to give it to her son who just dropped out of college. You know what I'm saying? So she really taught me the value of going for it. Going for it. Don't quit and going for it. Go get what's yours. Go get what's earned. Don't stop. You know. So you got principles and you got that mentality, and that with the work ethic of being West Indian, and you got me.
Man, I need to stop on this one. You're 18. If I'm not mistaken, you went to 5 colleges in 2 years.
Yeah.
You have a mom that is probably your number one fan.
Yeah.
That literally risked your whole family for her son's intuition.
Yeah.
That is crazy that she put that much faith in that human that's sitting in front of me now. Probably that moment is a milestone in who the guy I'm sitting with now is.
I'll never, ever, that's it. That's it, man. That is me. That is the structure of who I am. That moment, giving her back that money. Trust. I don't want to owe nobody nothing. You trust me, I will over-deliver for you. Anytime anyone has trusted me, what they got back, they got it back in abundance. I got that. I learned that from that exchange with my mom.
Man, you have a great one. Because honestly, everything not to support you was available. My son is not going to college. He has these crazy ideas. Like everything. Like she has every excuse not to take a risk on you.
She's taking it. She's not even telling my dad. She's not even letting him. She's not even hanging it on him. Because he would have said no. Hell no. Are you kidding me?
She knows he would say no.
Yes.
Man, that's a great woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Now I'm listening to your foundation, right? Who was your best teacher growing up from all of this? Is it parents? Is it family? Is it a random guy in the street? Somebody who... I know that your mom was pivotal in the character of Steve.
My best teacher, honestly, was the failures of people around me. I had an older brother who was a failure, an older sister that was a failure. I had friends that I went to school with that were failures. And I didn't want to be like them. Some of them were turning into drug dealers. Some of them were turning into drug users. I didn't want to be like that. I ran. That was the best teacher for me. This is what it looks like if you don't do it right.
You know, Steve, and I swear I don't compliment people unless I mean it. That is one of the best answers I've had. Because you said to learn from, because people usually tell me the TikTok answer, which is you learn from your failures, blah, blah, blah. You said, I learn from the failures of those around me. So that's wisdom, even at a young age, rather than you, because some people have to fall in the hole to get out and learn. But I feel you don't have to.
They're giving it to you right there.
It's free.
They're giving it to you right there.
Yeah.
Because the first thing you want to think is, oh, well, that's not going to happen to me. Like, I'm not going to get caught, right? Whatever the answer is, I'm not going to. He got caught because he's slow. He got caught because he's not me. What are you talking about, man? What are you talking? Where did you come up with that one? That's not an answer.
It's like bank robbers who think after the millions of people who tried to rob a bank, they
not
think
me. I have a better idea. This is a different mask. This is a special mask.
Exactly. They think it doesn't apply to them.
It doesn't matter. It's like, I don't get it. And I don't have TikTok.
Although some of your clips would do well on TikTok, that's for sure. Okay, now more into technicals. I love that I'm meeting you. You know, the slogan of the show is to discover the human behind the title. You always talk about your skills and all of that, but I wanted to get a glimpse of the human side of you, which I feel I got a bit. So I'm gonna ask more technical questions, then we go back to you as a person. You said you're 54, you have this rich career, very varied. You bring culture into advertisement, you problem solve. What's your why? Like, why the fuck do you do everything that you do? Something is making you run, because you can make enough money and just sit on your ass and think, okay, I'm okay now, everything is secure, stable. Let me enjoy the last 30, 40 years of my life, yeah? That's one way to go about it. But you have a fire, and I want to know what's burning you. What's the why?
God gives each of us, all of us in this room, a set of tools, gifts. And your job, I believe, is to get the most you can out of them. There's always something more to do. As you pass on, you should pass on with something else more to do. That's what I believe that. It's not about working and not, prioritizing your family or anything like that. It's about getting the most you can get out of the God-given ability that was gifted to you. I don't know. That's my dad's principles, by the way. My dad, when I first got into the record business, everybody was making a lot of money. I mean, hip hop had taken off. There was money everywhere. Once you got in, money. And people were working, obviously not as hard. They was making a lot of money. My dad taught me the principle of, like, just because you're making a lot of money and it's the music business or whatever, treat it the same way a mechanic would treat working at an auto shop. You put the hours in. Don't take hours off because of the money. That's separate. The principle is to do the best job you can every day. And whatever the outcome is, the outcome is. But don't let the outcome dictate your work ethic. So I've always been, I've been raised that way. And I have so much more to do. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a comfort in knowing there's stability, and there's a comfort in finding the sweet spot between peace and ambition. They have to coexist.
I like that.
Okay.
Peace and ambition, how to merge them. Oh, it's necessary. It's like also you said at this stage in your life also health was important and you got some scares in the family. And that's when you realize if it's just ambition without peace and maybe mental stability or just peace of mind, it's going to burn out at some point. Something will pop up, your health. Or do you think you've reached that harmony?
This is the first time I could say that I'm involuntarily running towards that space. I used to always think that let me just be more ambitious to speed up the process. So almost like, let me just speed up the process and then the peace will catch up. But let me just do this right now and then I'll get to the peace part. And for me, it doesn't work that way. Especially when you have kids involved and a family, wife. I don't want to use the word, it's not balance. I think that word is overly used.
I stopped using it.
Yeah. So that's why like this like peace and ambition.
That's why I use the word harmony.
Yeah.
Because my uncle said, why are you saying balance?
Yeah.
You can't stop working.
Yeah.
It's work-life harmony, not work-life balance.
Yeah. That I don't know. Now that's a TikTok fucking thing, the work-life balance.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The harmony, but the idea of peace, I actually use that to replace work. Because it really does, whatever you're doing, whatever the things are that you're doing, donating your time, working at a job to earn money, you have to find a sense of peace about that. There's financial, obviously, implications of that. So financial solutions, there's a certain number, there's a certain scenario of expenses and income that gets you to a place of peace. You know it's covered and you're fine, that kind of thing. And the ambition on top of that, to do more. It's that to me, that's where, and on the peace side, to do those things, your family gotta be straight. You gotta be able to look at your wife in the face and know that she feels like you're being a good dad, or if it's the other way around, you're being a good mom. There's this thing, like people ask the question like, how are you doing? You're always as good as if you have one kid that's not doing well, then you're not doing well, right? So you're always doing as good as your kid, who's doing the worst, or whatever it may be. There's some simulation between that. And to me, that's peace. You need that. You need to get the work shit right. You got to have the family in order. The kids got to be happy. They're feeling good. And when that's flowing, that's peace. And then you put ambition on top of it. Like that's my perspective on it.
I love the saying, always grateful, never satisfied.
Always grateful?
Always grateful, never satisfied.
Yeah.
I feel that's very much my life. I'm grateful for my family, for my country, for my health, but I'm just never satisfied. I always want to better things.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the fear or insecurity you've had to live with your whole life?
I always thought early on, it took me a while to get past this, that I was a one-trick pony, that I was actually running a trick. I didn't realize this is actually you, man. You really are that guy. You have a lot of ideas. You're full of ideas. You didn't just get lucky. So that early on, in my 30s, I had to deal with that. Like I thought, like, oh I may get caught. I'm not as good as maybe this is a trick that I pull off and no one knows.
It's called imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Well, and as it relates to other fears, I don't really have any fear that I've dealt with. My whole life. I have things that have scarred me as a child, that I've had to deal with my whole life, but not like a fear.
Can you give me one of those?
No, I don't want to get into that.
Respect that. I don't want to know what it is, but my question is, do you believe it's resolved, or do you believe it still eats at you, whatever that is?
It is finally resolving itself.
Itself meaning with time?
The idea, well, with time, part of it is, we were talking earlier and you said something about your parents and their relationship. There's obviously a direct connection between your parents and how they raised you, and who you become. And all of the things that weren't right, or that's not right about you, you can easily blame them for it. Like, this is the reason why, and this is the reason why, and this is the reason why. And it's probably true. But then there's a certain point where you have to take control of that and not be a victim of that circumstance anymore. So you have to get it out of your head that you can actually fall back on that problem. Like, it's not me, it was them. That took some time. That took a lot of time. A lot of it, helps when you become a parent. And then you realize how not perfect you are, right? So maturity, wisdom, starts to help you resolve certain things. You don't have to forget it, but you don't use it as a crutch anymore to say, well, the reason why I'm like this is because of that.
I agree. Because a lot of people adopt the victim mentality because it feeds your ego to feel bad for yourself, Oh, look at me, it's so sad. And everybody has their level of sad and trauma and all of those things, but it's a point of zero control when you're just a victim. But if you take some accountability, you're like, okay, what can I do about it now? Do I need therapy? Do I need to be more active in the gym? You can do things. Should I talk to my parent? For example, my grandma, God rest her soul, my mother said that she never said ever to my mom that she loved her. And only when my mom became a mother, she flooded us with love. How much she tells us she loves us and all of that. And when you ask her about her mom, she says she didn't know better. She was brought up probably in a house
that's
that way.
my dad. My dad doesn't tell me or tells me I can't even remember my dad telling me he loved me.
He doesn't know how. My dad doesn't know how, by the way. My dad doesn't know how to hug. But he wasn't taught that. It's awkward for him, But does he show his love through different avenues? Probably service, being there for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I would use that at times. Like, I get mad, and then I figured out what you just said. Like, I feel bad for him that he can't express himself that way. But I can't be upset with him anymore because that's a circumstance that he came up in, you know? I didn't understand it for a long time. It's perplexing that you can't tell me you love me, or you can't, certain acts of love that I would expect from you, you can't do. And then you realize it's like me asking you to dunk a basketball. There's no way. It's like, I could yell, I could get upset, I could get frustrated. I can't get you to dunk a basketball.
You know, what comes easy for you doesn't mean it comes easy for someone else. Maybe me and you can storytell for the next 3 hours. Some people will be stuck here. They have the story in their head, but the connection between their mind and their tongue is just not as easy for us. But we have it easy, and we're like, hey, how can't you just tell the story?
Yeah.
Okay, what is something that you do differently than anyone you know?
Than anyone I know.
Yeah, maybe it could be unorthodox.
I think I am a very deep, thoughtful, at unearthing the effects that culture has on shaping society. I spend an inordinate amount of time on thinking on that subject. It is this, I go so far with it that I've come up with this idea, this theory. This is one aspect of life where there was a period in time where fame and talent were partners. They had a relationship. They literally worked well together. Talent said, man, if this is good, and then you put fame on top of it, this thing goes. And over time, they've become arch enemies. In fact, fame doesn't even think it needs talent anymore. And talent has started to accept that. This is creating something that's going to happen that has a long, unintended effect, unintended and intended effect long term. To the point where I actually think in our lifetime, anonymity is going to be the new fame. How, the fact that you don't know somebody or never heard of them, how'd you do that? How'd you pull that off? That's actually going to be the new fame. I believe that.
Interesting.
I believe that with everything. So I think about these things nonstop. And I think I just have this anthropologist perspective and futurist perspective on as I think through culture. And I don't know anyone else who does it, who thinks about it like I do.
It's a nice one. I have also a few points that we got from your different stories with different people. So I want to see your observations and your notes. So one of the ones is, God rest his soul, Kobe. Kobe Bryant lived with you for a bit.
Yeah.
I know you had a hint with him with his music career, or also witnessing how his work ethic was.
Yeah.
What did you observe from this young man?
Special, man. Special from strong sense of belief in himself and did the work. He had a strong sense of belief in himself and did the work and was a historian.
What do you mean?
He would literally watch tapes of Michael Jordan going left, Michael Jordan going right. They were split. It was just all Michael Jordan going left, all Michael for hours. Michael Jordan guarding people going left, Michael Jordan guarding people going right. For hours. He watched that, he studied that. Then he would put hours into it. Whatever he borrowed or mimicked or whatever he did. And his belief in himself wasn't like, oh, but I'm less than Michael Jordan because that's the guy. Forget him. I got him. I'm going for that. And he did the same thing. And that was his attitude. Well-read, curious about everything. Got into the advertising business, by the way. Then made the movie and wins an Oscar. I mean, this guy is very, very, then created body armor and was about to go on a tear as a private equity or a venture capitalist, was raising money doing his thing. He was coming over here. He was raising money in the Middle East. He was a very, very special guy. And he has very special kids. His wife, Vanessa. He met Vanessa on the set of the music video, first music video I did for him. Vanessa was on the set, and he met her. I love everything about him, and I got a chance to spend a lot of time with him. I'm blessed for being able to spend time with that man.
Steve, would you say that because of Kobe and witnessing that he's excelling in different avenues, not only basketball, like you said, the movie, the short movie, whether it's advertising, do you think it's just a matter of having the similar ingredients, and if you apply them to any field, you'd excel?
Yeah, I think if you believe and you're willing to do the work, I've never seen anyone fail that didn't quit. If you keep going, you'll succeed. That's how he is. If you work at it, that's why you should do something that you enjoy. Do something you love, because for you to be successful no matter what, you have to work at it. So you should do something that you enjoy, because you're gonna have to do the work anyway, right? But yeah, that is the ingredient. Hard work, paying attention to your craft, understanding it. The greatest athletes in the world will tell you they were the greatest at practice. Period. That's the common ingredient. What are you doing when no one else is looking?
Yeah. Second story. Jay-Z called you the conduit between corporate America and hip hop. Why?
Because I started a company that was built on those values of translating culture for Fortune 500 companies. And I wanted to use hip hop as the first entry point of culture to translate. And the early work I did bringing hip hop to corporate America on the terms that the hip hop credibility wasn't being sacrificed in order for that exchange. Where everybody else would do it, they would try to get you in and then be like, now, tone it down. Don't say that. And I'm like, no, say that and be exactly who you are, because what we're selling should not affect you at all. It should amplify you on a bigger stage. If you go do this for money and you homogenize yourself for this thing, then you're doing a disservice to yourself and it's not worth it. And I believed in that. So I would do all the work. the fighting up front, so that by the time they walked in the room, they could be exactly who they wanted to be without any effects on the deal, their art, their credibility, anything. And Jay bet on me. He allowed me to do that for him, and I worked with him for years. You know, bringing him to corporations and working in that manner. You know, at a very important time in his career.
You know, I think it's so interesting because I'll make it a bit grand, but I think it is what it is. Earth needed a Steve because if corporate America is dealing with a man who knows business, then at least, you represent hip hop, okay, I can deal with you. I can talk contract negotiation, blah, blah, blah. Now we talk about the other side. If the talent doesn't fucking trust you, we have a problem.
Yes.
So you need to be trusted by both parties. So you're the middle man,
They used to call me the commissioner.
Yeah. So
that was my
if
nickname.
I trust you to protect my authenticity, then I can be like, okay, Steve, can you?
I understand it. I always understood it. I know how to deal with artists. I love speaking to artists. I understand artists. I get it. I got it. You know. And I know how to speak to brands to make them understand what's going on. And now that whole idea has been completely overblown. I'm very proud that I was in early, and, you know, dare I say that dare I say I'm the author of that idea of hip hop in corporate America at scale. But now it's so abundant that a lot of it is kind of watered down and corny.
You know, I saw that old documentary of the And One, Untold Story.
Yeah, great.
And that kind of touched on what you're saying. The fact that And One came as this, you know,
subculture.
Very authentic. And, you know, then there was Nike who didn't understand culture at that time. So then you had And One really doing these tournaments with real basketball, with the right, I don't know, I don't want to call it brand, but atmosphere.
Yeah.
And that's what connected with people versus a corporate that's trying to.
Yeah, they tried to do it. And the thing that they didn't do well was, as they expanded the business, they didn't get the product right. I mean, you've seen what happened, right? They didn't get the product right. Like you gotta, if you're gonna do that and you're playing that game, you gotta play the game all the way out. When I said homogenize, I mean that in every shape, form, and fashion. Like, if you're gonna be that brand, whatever it may be, okay, you show up on set, you be who you are, they accept that, cool. If you're gonna make the product, if there's a product that you're making, that product also has to be representative of you to the fullest. You can't have the shit product. Let's use an example, going back to Jay. There's so many others, but let's go back to Jay. The champagne. Look at the bottle. Taste the product. It works. It's not, the celebrity amplifies the great product. And one example, the heat and the nature of the impact that they were making culturally. When they were going into the footwear business, you have to make this footwear the same quality as your cultural impact. The cultural impact was to amplify the great product. But clearly what they did was they were using lesser quality product and hoping they can get away with it because of the impact that they were making. And like, you can't do that. Like, you can never, back to my dad, the principle, you can never ever sacrifice the principle or get out of it. You can't just like do that.
Well, the next question, I feel, taps into something you kind of was maybe the protector of, right? So I know that Nas had the reputation of being, of course, one of the greatest lyricists, right? But you kind of guided him without making him lose this raw authenticity, which is very hard.
No.
Just imagining back then. Now maybe people get it because it's a case study after case
Yeah,
study.
yeah.
But back then they want to diet it down or they want to make it more marketable, and people will not trust or believe that just being you completely will work. So how did you maintain the raw authenticity but still make it sellable?
So that was very difficult, and I was very nervous about that. At the time when Nas made, one of, if not the greatest hip hop album ever made in Nomadic, I was working with him as his manager, his consigliere on making the second album. I'm getting the producers. He's allowing me to executive produce the album. I'm overseeing the project. I'm constructing what we're gonna make. And he trusted me. Back to that thing about trust. He trusted me, so I had to over-deliver. I mean, everything I had. And I had not done this before. So he trusted me with a responsibility that was here. I was here. He was asking me to do this. So I had to surpass that because he trusted me. Nas and I never had a contract, never had a management contract. We never had nothing. My friend, 28 years later, we never had nothing contractually between us, just trust. You can find me anytime you feel like it. That's trust. So I'm making the record, the second album, and the lead song is I Rule the World. And Lauryn Hill's singing on it. And believe it or not, in hindsight, it's not necessarily, it stood the test of time and it aged well. But at the time, we thought we definitely knew we were making a hit. But we were like, man, is this gonna take away from Illmatic and the Nas, Nasty Nas? So I was trying to do certain things to disguise it, like, put out some freestyles before we dropped the video, or make the video a certain way where we had them rap something else in the video in the beginning and then came the song. And we made it number 12 on the album back then when there were albums. The last song on the album was I Rule the World. We were damn near hiding it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if you look at the track listing of that album, this is the last song on the album. Okay. Usually you put the hit up first, the hit, we buried it. It was almost like, how can I get this off without putting it in everybody's face so that we can try to dilute the fact that we're going for a hit record with radio appeal, global radio appeal with Lauryn Hill. Anyhow, we had nothing to worry about because the song was a hit and it did not take away from his credibility at all. And, we were fortunate, but that was a very slippery slope for me. I was really nervous about that. He wasn't so much, but I was, because I didn't want to fuck it up, man. And there were people who told me, Q-Tip, he produced on the first album and didn't produce on the second album. And in hindsight, I should have probably brought him in. In hindsight, I should have brought him in on the second album because he made one of the great songs on the first album. And then when I went to master the final version of I Rule the World, he happened to be there. And he looked at me and said, that's his first single? And this is already Q-Tip. He's a talented producer. He's a talented artist. I'm now doing this for the first time. I'm like, oh, I'm really fucking this up. But belief in myself was, yeah, this is the first single. Let me listen to what he said. Let me do some confirm. Let me make sure we put the song last and do all the things to make sure we have some way of protecting ourselves here. But I was very nervous about that. Very nervous. And then after that, everything was all good. But that moment was a very nervous moment for me. And it turns out to be probably his biggest hit.
I think it's the first song that I was introduced.
Yeah, it's probably his biggest hit.
What's the craziest thing you've ever done for someone?
The list is too long, man.
Give me one.
The list is so long, man.
One of the ones that pop in your mind.
In the music business, you talking about? In life?
Could be music. In your definition of you did something crazy for someone. And you've lived, it seemed, a rich life.
I don't even, it's so much. There's a long, I mean, I can't even unpack which one is the craziest thing. I mean, I'm trying to be specific. You're asking really good questions. I would say the amount of time that I put into working with Nas. And there was a period of time where he didn't really give a fuck. And he was giving me a hard time. And I cared more than he did. The extent of that care and concern. I would do everything. I would find the song. I would put everything together. I would wait in the studio for hours to get him to show up. I'd go pick him up, go to his house and go get him. I would do anything to get him, to drag him to the finish line. He talks about that. I did anything to drag him to the finish line. It's a series of crazy things.
It's crazy, Steve, how responsible you feel when a person trusts you.
Yeah. I don't even know how to do it any other way. It's whether the 400 people that work for me, my family, there's a certain responsibility that when somebody trusts you that you have. You can't look at somebody in the face and don't mean it. You can't take that lightly. There's people who work for me, their child care, their kids' college, their kids' school, or whatever it may be, is relying upon me getting up every day and giving my best. And that's the contract we have, the unwritten contract that we have. They trust me and I have to give them my best. And whether you're a business partner, my family, whatever it is, you say what you mean and you deliver on what you say.
I love that, man. Yeah, I recently was a guest on a show, and I don't know how we got to this, but you just reminded me of my answer, which is a bit similar. And I said, I was brought up that a man is his word. That if I shake your hand today and you tell me, Anas, when you come to the US, I want you to do 1, 2, 3, or when I come here, can you take care of this for my kids? And I just say, yeah.
That's it.
It's done. And it's so sad to see we live in a world where...
That means nothing.
But back then, even my grandfather and...
It's again, principle-based, man. People say shit they don't mean. They just talk.
I can't deal with people like that. Even if it's the majority, Okay, on to the next one. You're a popular guy, and you've been around a lot of famous people too. What did you learn from fame?
So I did learn that you could use fame as an advantage. There's a clear advantage when people know who you are, and there's a favoritism to that. I've also seen fame put people in handcuffs, figuratively and literally, where you are trapped because of the fame. You can't find freedom because of the fame. So understanding the power of fame and not falling in the trap of believing that that's real. The other thing about fame is you're famous whether people love you or hate you. I remember early in my career, I was with this group, Kid and Play, many, many years ago. And their career had tailed off. Fine. They would walk around and people would take pictures with them and want an autograph. Because they were still famous, but not because they were currently listening to their music or engaging with their products they were trying to sell. It's like when people drive by a car accident. They drive slow. They don't really care. They just want to see the car accident. But it looks like they're slowing down for a reason. They're slowing down for a reason to see it. But it's not indicative of their real concern. Just because they walk up to you and take a picture with you, that's why it's always interesting when you look at Instagram. The model is great. It just says like. It doesn't say love or hate. Imagine if the like button literally said love or hate. You picked each one of them. Love or dislike. Be a much different thing. The fact that you like it, or if you don't like it, you don't do nothing, allows everybody to feel famous.
So biased.
Yeah, I like it, or I said nothing.
That's such an interesting thing about the car accident. It's so true. Okay, on to business. How do you approach problems? Because you've seen a lot, you talked about problem solving.
Yeah.
You know, and for me, I believe life is a never-ending problem-solving game.
No.
That's life.
So I solve a lot of problems I'm a vision guy, I'm an idea guy, I'm not an operator. My first instinct is if you get the idea big enough and successful enough, it solves all the problems. That's not real, but that's what I want to believe. But I never want, for me, the operations of that stuff to distort my aim for the North Star idea, for the big idea. So I solve problems by really thinking about how can I build a plan around solving this problem that is so bulletproof that even when someone comes up with the next idea, I can see where technology is going, or I can see where an industry is going, they're gonna arrive at the next idea. But I've already thought through that one. So that's still not gonna change this idea. Like the idea is thought through, and then you start thinking about if you were somebody trying to attack that idea, what would you do? And then come up with the idea that will also stop that. So you're basically double bagging the problem.
There's that saying, I think, who was it? Maybe, I don't know. It was, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So you're doing the opposite. You're planning so your idea doesn't get compromised. So you're doing all of these insurances that I need to protect this baby.
Yeah.
How can I make sure that the house...
And you want to see exactly how, after you nail the idea and you have your solve, okay, so where's the weakness in that solve? Okay, that could happen. If these three things happen, that will then ruin that solve. Okay, let's also, before we call this an idea, solve that problem as well. Now that problem may be a 3-year problem, but you gotta solve that problem too.
It's nice, it's like preventative maintenance rather than reactive maintenance.
Yeah.
Like going to the gym before you get sick.
All of those things, going to the gym, taking medicine, the whole.
Yeah, I like that. Something that crossed my mind. You said I lived in the States. That's 8 years of my life between baby and college. So I saw the U.S. But also now, from my perspective here, when I watch social media and I see the news, and it's scary, and I think you'll have an interesting take on this. It's really scary when you talked about fame, how you could be famous for love or for hate. Both you have the same end product, but it's very different reason. And I feel that sometimes America keeps building you until they cancel you. Until it's like we have this saying, when the camel falls, the knives come out, right? And now I see, man, every year there's another story. Now my whole explore is p-diddy this and p-diddy that.
Yeah.
Then you hear, Justin Bieber speaking, and then you hear Billie Eilish speaking, and then it's every year there's some flavor, whether it's Kanye, so. What's your take on this dark side, maybe, of the music?
I don't know. Well, I think the media business has become a couple things here. Yeah. There's a lot here, what you just said. Fame has become so addictive and has become so driving in why decisions are made that the talent has been ignored. I said this. This is now in politics. The President of the United States, congressmen in the United States are getting chosen for fame over policy. This is scary. Followers, fame, on social media matters so much in the idea of saying who you are. When you walk into a room, you have that many followers. I've seen this before. I don't know if you've ever seen this before. I don't even know this motherfucker's name, but somebody tells me how many followers they have before they tell me their name, okay? That's like standard practice. That because that identity around followers has become so big, it's now forcing people, they're incentivized to do anything that will allow you to gain followers. So anytime there's a story like this Diddy thing, now, they built him up, and I would clearly say that he's done enough when that tape came out to hurt his reputation. Right? But now, all of the lists of people who were at a party and all this other bullshit, you at a Diddy party, now all of a sudden, now that's the stuff that is people getting followers. So if I put together a list and I put Oprah on the list first, this is a complete made up fucking thing. It's just Diddy parties. There's nothing to do with anything. Like, okay, you went to a party. What the fuck does that have to do with anything? But like, let's just make a list. And if you publish that list, ooh, oh shit, I knew it. Oh fuck, he's gay. Oh fuck, da 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 da. You get clicks. You get more followers. You may actually go viral. And guess what? The best part about the internet for these people who live their lives on this thing is that if you say something and you're wrong or it doesn't work, people don't even pay attention to it. And if it works, you go viral. You have no penalty to pay for saying something stupid. You only have an opportunity to go viral because it doesn't make a difference. Your goal is to say something to get more people to pay attention to you. You don't even have to believe it. Just be polarizing. That's why on the internet, the minority has the loudest voice. The person who says the unpopular thing that lends a perspective to something has the loudest voice. Oh shit, what about that? What about that? this thing, go, you know what I'm saying, because I talked about this, man. I believe that this thing is going to hurt society. When in the television industry, in American network television, you know, the channel, the public channels, Channel 2, ABC, Fox, CBS in America, those channels. I'm sure they have it here. What you put on national television, at anybody free television, is you can't curse, you can't show nudity, you can't do any of these things. They monetize it. They monitor it. In America, the FCC, they monitor this stuff. You can't curse, you can't do this, you can't do that. Yet, the internet, which is also free, which has more audience, anybody can get on it the same way like network television or free television, yet it has no rules. You can curse, you can show sex, you can do anything you want. You can lie and make up shit. What they were trying to protect with the laws around free television is some sense of protection for society. With the internet, there's no protection for society. And yet it has more followers, more easy to access, and yet there's no controls. So what do you think it's doing? That's why it's doing to young girls. Why every girl is taking a picture sideways to show their ass. Or why they want so much plastic surgery. All this shit's going on. Or what do you think it's doing to the mental health? What do you think it's doing to the confidence of young men and young women? What do you think it's doing to over-sexualizing every motherfucking thing? All of this stuff is connected to this idea of building you up and taking you down. It's just, how can you create noise, popularity for yourself, for your site? How can you gain followers? How can you be perceived as liked? That's what they're doing it for. There's nothing behind it except there's a number. And those numbers give you a sense of belonging. Those numbers are becoming more important than anything else in your life.
That's so sad.
That's a fact.
What's the best advice someone has told you?
I've gotten a lot of great advice from Jimmy Iovine throughout my career. And one of the things he told me is that if you stand in one spot long enough, you'll see the ships go up, the boats will go up really fast. And you'll be like, man, look how fast they're going up. And you'll want to get caught up into like what that all means and want to be a part of that. But if you stay there long enough, you'll start to see them come back down. And it was a very important lesson for me because that's what trends are. So you're like, oh, let me jump on this thing right now. And then all of a sudden, you stay long enough, you see that shit start coming back down. And at the time in my life when he told me that, it was important because I was ready to jump on one of those boats, you know, the boat of something. He told me this idea, like when you go to your grandmother's house, she'll be knitting something. Then you do your thing, you come back like 4 months later and that shit's a full-blown duvet spread. And you're like, how the fuck did it get so big? Because she stuck to her knitting. So you should stick to your knitting.
I like that, man.
Why do horses wear blinders?
Focus. You know, when you were talking about social media, Mike Tyson, I think, said it's something along the lines that it's so easy to bully people online until you get punched in the face. And the problem with social media, there's no accountability. You could be sitting on a toilet and talking shit to everybody. And
Yeah. I got an email today from somebody that said, I have photos of you at the white party, and if you want me, I will dispose of them if you send me send me some, da, 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 da. I was in there like, this is exactly, it's like you just fucking emailing me, telling me, like, what kind of crazy psychopathic shit are you doing? Sending me an email saying like, oh, I got paid. You think I give a fuck about what you think you have? But it's a white, I don't even know what you're talking about. But this is the kind of, just throwing out hooks, fishing for something.
Tombstone question. What would you want carved on your tombstone, and how would you want people to remember you? So your name, what's under it?
I don't know, man. I don't be thinking about that type of shit. Like, I don't have that phrase yet.
Well, how do you want people to remember you? Hopefully.
Somebody who really cared. And when I love you and I care for you, you got all of me.
Last one. Steve in one word.
Abundance.
Why?
Because I want to give, I want to feel life in abundance. That's how I live my life.
And to more abundance, my friend.
That's my man.
Thank you. You good?
Yeah.
It's nice listening to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a crazy brain and a good one.